when you know the reasons why. Citizens, we fight for what is right. Courage, duty, honor, a noble sacrifice. When duty calls, you pay the price. For the Federation, I will give my life. Courage, duty, honor. It's a good day to die when you know the reasons why. Citizens.
So, Warhammer Darktide. Fat Shark and Games Workshop really pulled this one out of nowhere, but also in a sense, I think a few of us predicted that something was up. Warhammer Vermintide for some reason was heading to a major standstill in content and updates. They were really lacking information than actually content when it came to communication, and Fat Shark could not make up their minds about roadmaps or to give feedback to the community. This resulted in the last few months of Vermintide losing a lot of the player base, but of course now we know why. Obviously Warhammer Darktide is where all the dev power has been going for Fat Shark over the last few months, and I can't blame them for being excited to work on this new IP. Anyway, for those of you who have been living under a Lehman Russ for the last few weeks and have no idea what Warhammer Darktide is, let me give you a rundown. Warhammer Darktide is a 4-player, first-person shooter co-op action game set within the hive city of Tertium, where you fight together against hordes of enemies. You will collect loot after every mission, in which you will battle against different enemy types whilst wielding an arsenal of weapons such as a lasgun and chainsword, which will have a tight melee combat system while giving ranged weapons their own complexity. And that is pretty much as far as we know up to this point. The rest is purely speculation. But obviously that is my forte. Now, a lot of people have spoken about these 4 heroes. I mean, heroes probably isn't the right word to use for Guardsmen. Expendable player character seems more fitting. Anyway, in the trailer we saw 4 Guardsmen, which I think gave a lot of people a false hope that we will not see different classes in the game. This artwork, however, does tell differently. Now, a lot of people have been saying that the 4 expendable characters we can play as are a Pyro or a Flamer, an Ogrant, a standard Guardsman, and potentially a Psyker. This is actually a well-rounded set of characters that could easily have great dialogue between each other, a vast set of abilities and traits between them as well. When comparing to Vermintide's class system, they could easily come up with different ideas. For example, how Carillion and Vermintide can switch between a Dark Elf, a High Elf, and a Wood Elf in the game. Now, starting with the Pyro. This to me feels like it could be more of a tech priest of Mars that has access to weapons such as a flamer or a Omnissiah axe for close combat, which I feel could play more of a support / buff role in the group, helping to buff those of armor and weapons with the power of the machine god, which I think could be a really damn cool ability, and leaves room for a lot more to add in the future. I mean, Adeptus Mechanicus are consistently growing in Games Workshop, and seeing this guy as a Skitarii Ranger in another class would be really cool. Also, I would love to hear the dialogue of an Adeptus Mechanicus in-game, just how they never shut up about their machines and weapons, as I find them when actually reading books quite interesting to hear their perspective on technology, and I think could lead to some quite fun dialogue. Moving on to the Ogrant, obviously this is going to be your tanky / Kruber Bard and Ironbreaker of the group. I mean, when it comes to dialogue for an Ogrant, I imagine in the lore they are going to make this guy a bonehead, basically a more smarter Ogrant, if you can say that, who can actually count their fingers and remember their name. Otherwise, this guy will not really add much to the conversations. But hey, if they want to do that, Fat Shark, I'm not going to complain. Moving on to the classes, I think they can do a lot with the Ogrant. I mean, you have Bullgrims with their custom-made carapace armor, wielding shields and power mauls, which could be great for a close combat focused game. I mean, I would love to see that in game. Also Gunluggers, which are basically Ogrins with weapon range efficiency, probably using Ripper guns, which are just basically these giant automated shotguns that can just kill anything in their path. But in this picture, it seems we have another weapon, which I can't quite make out. It looks like another flamer with the fuel pack on the back, but I guess we will have to see. As for other weapons I think we could see the Ogrant taking, I mean, autocannons, las cannons, and plasma cannons I don't think are out of the question, but for the love of God, Fat Shark, please get plasma gun sound effects right. I mean, sound effects are going to be a massive thing in this game, and if you get plasma gun sound effects right, you're already on your way there. As for abilities, I think simply looking at the Ironbreaker Bardin and Kruber, you're going to get your full story. Abilities that allow them to take enemy hostility, probably giving passive temp health buffs to nearby friendlies. Charge abilities like Kruber's shield knockdown is definitely something that I think we're going to see. Moving on to my personal favourite, the Guardsmen. I do think we truly have to appreciate Fat Shark's decision to go for the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum over something like Space Marines. I mean, they could have gone for Space Marines, but I'm so glad they didn't. Guard, in my opinion, don't get enough recognition for how badass they are, and I hope in this game they get justice. So, for the Imperial Guard Soldier, I feel this is going to be your bread and butter class, having access to obviously the standard lasgun, plasma gun, combat knife, chainsword, etc. But as for classes, I definitely think we could see a Commissar class for this guy. Wielding a power sword or a power claw with a bolt or plasma pistol I think would be really damn cool. Obviously we all want the ability where if you shoot your teammates they get a buff, as a true Commissar would, but for the last one I would love to see Death Corps Guardsmen. I mean, being able to use the bayonet on the end of his gun and charge towards the enemy would also just be damn right cool. And obviously the lovely gas mask, you know, sort of wear to go with it would just be damn cool as well. Lastly, we have our so-called Psyker. Now, I personally don't think this actually is a Psyker. I think Fat Shark may be trying to move away from the sort of magic in this game to a more realistic setting, if you can say that. What I think we have here is actually a Cadian Sniper. The cloak and the sniper barrel sort of fit the profile for that quite nicely, and with that you basically have a specialised guardsman role. I feel the sniper could have its very similar abilities to the Kruber Huntsman, headshots giving more ammunition, and then something similar to his career skill being able to disappear and do bonus range damage. As for his different class, I think you're going to be looking at a Catachan Jungle Fighter or a Catachan Devil. Access to maybe a more defensive play with mines and plasma charges, with obviously shotguns, and obviously a close combat blade. But they also do use a flamer and a heavy bolter as well. Moving on to enemies, obviously if anyone has ever played the Tabletop or read Dark Imperium series of books, you will know that our first main enemy is Poxwalkers of Papa Nurgle. Seriously, these guys are creepy, and how they are created after seeing Papa Nurgle's garden and then instantly transforming them into these creepy smiling creatures is just beyond terrifying. But they are a great main enemy for the game. Plenty of body parts of arms, spikes or tentacles, whatever takes your fancy to cut off with that classic Vermintide lobbing off limb system. I imagine there will be variants of the Poxwalkers without armour and with armour, but the only other enemy we really know of or think is the Chaos Ogryn. Obviously we have not really had a good look at this, but I imagine it will be similar to a Minotaur in Vermintide, charging at you with heaps of damage and HP to tank. As for other enemies, we really don't know at this point. The main question in my opinion though is, will they stick to Chaos Corrupted or have demons included? If Nurgle demons are a go ahead, then be sure to look out for Nurglings running around probably similar to your simple Skaven slave, being able to be cut in two with a simple chainsword swing. Fat Shark may even reuse the Chaos Spawn model in this game, but that's a big maybe. Plague Bearers and Plague Drones, which are basically lesser demons of Nurgle, I imagine can definitely make an appearance, but as for bosses, I think this is where things get a bit more interesting. We are at the end of the day going to be playing as Guardsmen. They ain't no Space Marines, and even going up against a Chaos Ogryn would be a small chance of living. Obviously the final boss being a Great Unclean One, or Mortarion, might be a bit of an overkill for us, but I'd still take the fight. Being serious though, I think a single Death Guard Marine would make a great final boss battle. Obviously they are very slow and will have a ton of HP, and usually Plague Marines choose melee weapons over guns, which allows for that more Vermintide combat system to come into play, more like when fighting a Rat Ogre. Anyway, I'm going to do a more detailed breakdown of potential characters and enemies in future videos, but let me know what you think in the comments. Is there something I've missed or something that you want to see in the game? I might mention it later in a future video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.